Greetings, cherished anointed ones. They attempt to imprison your light in a lab when they are unable to comprehend it. Give it some time to settle. For your insight is causing someone to lose sleep in a dimly lit room while wearing a nice suit and drinking an expensive beverage. Why? For the dark elite, revolt is hardly the most dreadful thing. It is enlightening. And you are walking, speaking, and carrying divine intelligence in your flesh, chosen one. They won't mention this information aloud. Non-local consciousness anomalies. Yes, you are not only recorded, but also seen at the highest levels of secret societies, intelligence networks, and clandestine tech labs. And not just seen, imitated, characterized, and dreaded. Without using a single weapon, you not only manage to get out of the matrix, but also manage to hack it from inside. And they detest that aspect the most. You weren't born with 10 surnames, you didn't attend their Ivy League colleges, and you don't read from their secret information base. However, they are aware that you are 10 steps ahead of their goal. Furthermore, your glow-up was divine, not designer. Let's face it. It makes sense why they are twitching. Why are they following you, then? Why do they take your language, imitate your manner, hide behind phony accounts, and examine your journey as if it were a secret document? Because this is the one thing they will never acknowledge. Those who serve shadows cannot see the broader picture. However, you were born with downloads from the exact source they have been seeking to quiet for generations, under cosmic watch. Welcome to the reality of their fixation. Let's take a broad approach. First of all, they are powerful yet lack vision. They have all the money in the world. They own businesses, intelligence services, satellites, and electronic surveillance equipment. You've never heard of it at all. They still can't touch one item. However, in spite of all that strength, your heavenly vision, they were unable to purchase, control, or steal that one item. And it makes them crazy. The dark elite, in fact, never had true understanding. Control is all they've ever had. They have the ability to cause mayhem, shift markets, and forecast trends. However, they are unable to see beyond their own goals. They have cold, tactical, linear power. Yours is warm, multi-layered, and intuitive. They are exposed by that contrast. In reality, they don't comprehend you. They just worry about what you may become into. They're playing a different game than you. While they falsify facts to mislead the public, you have inner wisdom that avoids all pitfalls. It's not necessary to warn you of what's coming. You sense it. You may take action without waiting for approval or acclaim. You just move. And it scares them because everything they've created relies on people being oblivious, perplexed, and obedient. You're not any of those things, however. You move with an inner clarity that consistently works even when it doesn't make sense on paper. They attempt to monitor you since they are unable to identify its origin. They follow you on social media. They listen in on your discussions. They introduce individuals into your life under the guise of being innocuous, inquisitive, or helpful. But their true purpose is data collection, not assistance. The actual question they are attempting to answer is, how do you know what you know? And how can you continue to win when you ought to have failed based on all of their calculations? It's the one thing they can't duplicate, yet the solution is straightforward. They lost connection to the heavenly area where your wisdom originates long ago when they exchanged their souls for power. The fact that you have power does not make you powerful. Your ability to see through things gives you strength. They are unable to understand the larger picture, and that's precisely why they're keeping a closer eye on you than you realize. Second, your understanding is cosmic revolt rather than merely uncommon. Not only is your insight amazing, it's also risky. Your truth destroys invisible bonds without any effort on your part, not because you're attempting to start something. You carry more than simply knowledge. It is a kind of subdued insurrection, a heavenly download that doesn't follow the terrible norms of this planet. Rebellion that yells in the streets is not feared by the dark elite. The type of wisdom that reverberates like thunder and dwells in quiet is what they dread. You are that. You are not scripted. You don't need approval. You just know. Furthermore, neither books nor research are the source of your knowledge. It originates from a higher power. You wouldn't have learned it. You received a transfer of the matter. It runs through you with such raw strength because of this. People may feel what you say in their bones. Without attempting, you reveal falsehoods. Manipulation is disrupted by your presence, and you can't control that type of power. They want your voice to be silenced because it is accurate, not because it is loud. Like a hot scalpel cutting through millennia of programming, it slashes through layers of deceit. You don't sound like someone who is attempting to solve problems. You talk as if you've seen the conclusion before. People lean in when you speak because of this. Your quiet causes discomfort in rooms because of this. You aren't responding. You're disclosing. And each time you do, they feel their whole foundation tremble. You are not only a religious person. They perceive you as a burden and a danger to the foundation they have put so much effort into creating. They research you for that reason. They imitate your remarks because of this. They monitor you for that reason. You are a living example of how they are not in charge of everything. You are proof that true power is independent of a contract, a platform, or a title. All it needs is presence. You've got it too. Not only are you perceptive, you are an interruption from heaven. A reminder that even the most evil elite cannot stop a soul sent to reveal the truth, and that God still has the power to overturn systems. The third is that they have looping intelligence. It develops in spirals, yours. They work in cycles. With a new name or fad, the same strategies, methods, and manipulations remain. Everything is recycled. Their artificial algorithms, secret meetings, and intelligence networks are all set up to function like a machine. Controlled, deliberate, and predictable. The dark elite moves in this manner. They rely on recurring events. They have an obsession with predictable and controllable patterns. The issue is that you're not included in their loop. You go in circles. You change. You change. Additionally, they are unsure about how to handle it. You change every time they think they have you figured out. You've already outgrown that version of yourself each time they construct a trap based on who you were. You do not develop in a linear fashion. Layers of movement are involved. You don't simply go ahead, you go deeper. Their strategies don't stick to you because of this. Predictable conduct doesn't have to limit you. You are not in a state of survival. They anticipated you to repeat trauma cycles, but you're not. You interrupt cycles. Additionally, they have never had to deal with breaking cycles since most individuals unknowingly contribute to their system. This is what irritates them the most. To update, you don't need their tools. You don't need their institutions, their schooling, or their phony knowledge. A mainframe does not download your understanding. It originates from a higher power. You are ascending spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically without their consent, while they continue to circle the same formulae in an attempt to gain power. And it poses a significant risk. They like things to be tidy and contained. People they can classify, label, or disparage appeal to them. However, none of their definitions apply to you. They are unable to explain how you continue to rise after each setback or why you know what you do. To them, your spiral development seems to be chaos, yet it's really divine order. You weren't made to do it again. You were destined to rise. And it implies that they will always lag behind, regardless of how much they loop, monitor, or plan. Because you've already changed by the time they respond. They don't have you in the loop. The spiral is being rewritten by you. Fourth, they believe that mapping you would be simple, yet you are not a landscape. You're a storm. They believe that mapping you would be easy. A few documents, ancestry research, psychological profile, and maybe some digital monitoring. That should be sufficient, they believed. You were meant to be simply another case study, another soul that had woken that they could keep an eye on, forecast, and control. However, you fell short of their expectations in every way. You didn't just disappear off their map. They were unable to map the force you became. Not a landscape, but a storm that is uncontrollable, dynamic, and alive. You continue to interfere with their computations. To predict your future, they look at your history. However, since you don't act out of ego, you continue to advance in ways that logic cannot follow. You move from your soul, and the force of spirit is not dependent on constancy. All it needs is alignment. They never anticipated that. You don't change gradually. You take a dimension jump. You go from being silent and unnoticeable to using a phrase to breach strongholds. How can that be measured? Prediction is the foundation of their systems. Patterns are what give them power. Your wisdom, however, is a live prophecy. It reacts, changes, and adapts according to divine timing rather than their schedules. That's what keeps them perplexed. Every time they believe they have you pegged, you surprise them by rising above the situation. It's not a stroke of luck. It's not arbitrary. It is enlightening. They have observed your decisions, assessed your replies, and attempted to elicit emotions. However, your relationship is too holy, your progress too rapid, and your discernment too nimble. They don't realize that your drive isn't driven by personal ambition. The breath of God is guiding you. Furthermore, God deviates from their plans. The instant you develop, their data dies. They will never speak the truth out. They don't find your past intimidating. It's your unpredictable nature that shakes them, because you're not living your life according to a set of rules. Like fate in motion, you're on the go. Their experiment is not you. Their exposure is you. Before it hit and changed their sky, they believed they could predict the storm that is you. Number 5. Your quiet was seen as ignorance, but it was really holy calculus. They believed you were weak after seeing your quiet. Power is noisy, violent, and ever-changing in their world. They thus convinced themselves that you were either trapped, perplexed, or just too innocent to defend yourself when you retreated, were silent, or failed to answer their games. However, they were unaware of what was really taking on behind that silence. You weren't lost. You paid attention to something much superior, not to them. You were plunging with divine timing and something holy as others rushed to take control. You weren't frozen. You were strategic. Your soul was collecting information they would never be able to access and making decisions they will never comprehend. You didn't just take your time getting well. You refocused your purpose during the quiet. You were getting insights while others were out creating illusions. You were allowing God to hone your vision and guide your next actions in accordance with divine law. They hurried because fear and haste are the foundations of their power. Yours, however, is the result of understanding when to observe, when to wait, and when to remain still in order to hear the whispers that most others overlook. They were never able to determine that. You're always 10 times wiser than them, but they're always 5 steps ahead in noise. They're now rushing to stay awake. They are unaware that your quiet wasn't passive. It was calculated. You did not leave. You contacted the source. And the precise thing that is putting you in a position to demolish their delusions without doing any work is what you got during those peaceful times. They're anxious because of this. They're paying closer attention than ever before because of this. For all of a sudden, the person they believe to be behind them is surpassing them in ways they cannot understand. You didn't just remain quiet. You experienced energy changes, witnessed doors open, calculated timetables, and got heavenly directives that they are not authorized to accomplish. Your subsequent actions weren't hasty. They were revered. And you're already entering a future they didn't anticipate while they're in a panic. You are a spiritual mole in their matrix. Number 6. You weren't born. Rather, you were placed into a corrupt system, like a secret key, to prevent all you stand for. They are rattled by your presence because of this. It wasn't like you suddenly woke up and realized the falsehoods. You were destined to. Because of such, you are dangerous. You're not a renegade who happened to discover the truth. You are traveling with a heavenly plan. You were positioned directly in the center of their meticulously designed matrix in order to disrupt it from the inside out. It's also effective. Control, foresight, and manipulation are the foundations of the dark elite. However, none of those channels are where you operate. You don't even attempt to disturb things. The dynamics of the room change just by your presence. They can't explain it because it wasn't intended to be articulated, but your words alone reveal motives in a discussion. It was supposed to fall apart. They research you for that reason. They watch and imitate you because of this. To them, you are more than simply an issue. They have a bug in your system. Worse, you are a purposeful bug. They are unable to access the spiritual codes you carry. For this reason, they persist in attempting to get information by deception, inducement, or even distraction. However, since what you carry wasn't intended for them, they still don't get the whole download no matter what they do. It is secure and encrypted. It only becomes active when it is divinely timed and in accordance with your objective. Although your blueprint was not written in their language, they have attempted to decipher you using equipment from Earth. It wasn't your purpose to blend in. You were sent to awaken, to reveal, to destabilize. That is the reason for their fear. You're accurate, not because you're noisy. It's because you know, not because you're upset. You behave as if you are reporting to a higher authority. And you really are. They are most frightened by it. Because you're accomplishing the exact goal they didn't anticipate each time you tell the truth, maintain your integrity, or break one of their well-planned traps. Your actions don't make you a threat. Because you are a heavenly mole in their network, you pose a danger. Additionally, the system is already breaking down. Seventh, you see trends they are unaware of. You don't guess. Before anything happens, you sense it. You are able to identify changes before anybody else does. You're already getting used to what's going to happen, while others are still awaiting evidence. It isn't paranoid. It's the awareness of spiritual patterns. It is an inbuilt radar that relies on deep alignment rather than reasoning. And books, systems, or organizations don't provide that sort of view. It originates from heavenly consciousness, which is deeper and far older. Patterns are also important to the dark elite. However, theirs are produced. They use social engineering, algorithms, and psychology to monitor human behavior. However, you move differently than other people. The invisible is where your patterns originate. Energy, not headlines, is what you perceive. Vibration, not numbers, is what you read. You are inherently unpredictable as a result. Your spirit will tell you that something that everyone else is enjoying is poisonous, therefore you will leave it. After you talk about things that haven't occurred yet, the world eventually catches up to what you already know. They are fixated on you because of this. You decode without requiring the whole image, not because you're well-known or noisy. You don't need a clock to comprehend time, and you're almost always right. Because intelligence is not the source of what you get. Spiritual clarity is the source of it. You are able to read the field, not simply the room. Before it's even spoken, you can feel what's developing. They attempt to mimic you. They mimic your tone, your words, and your demeanor. They're only repeating what they heard, so no matter how precisely they duplicate, it never sounds the same. You're using your knowledge as a channel. For it, there is no formula. They do not want your submission, but they do want your sight. They are interested in your knowledge, not your depth, and they will never be able to overcome that gap. It sounds wonderful, but you're not intuitive. Your spirit is in tune with something more than this planet, which is why you are intuitive. And no hierarchy, no system, and no elite goal can ever foresee, acquire, or stop that type of vision. Eighthly, their establishments were never designed to endure individuals with your kind of soul. It was never intended for you to outgrow their systems, much less survive them. Their political, religious, educational, and media establishments weren't designed to empower people. They were designed to make you calm, submissive, and manageable so they could utilize you. These regimes penalize inquiry and encourage conformity. Memorization, not wisdom, is praised. They encourage performance rather than the truth. But here you are, looking right through it all. They indoctrinated the world to dread consequences, adore titles, remain in line, and obey scripts. However, terror has no effect on your soul. It reacts to reality. You are a system breaker only for that. Cycles weren't wired into you. You were made to annoy them. Because of this, something inside of you continued to resist no matter how much conditioning they attempted to impose. You felt something wasn't right, even if you didn't know how to express it. Early on, you saw the fissures. Knowing that divine blazing insight was the menace they never anticipated, even if you couldn't explain them yet. You oppose more than simply the system. You've gone beyond it. Their rules aren't being followed by you. You're exposing their true emptiness. You've come to the realization that the table itself is a falsehood, while others are still pleading for a place at their table. And it's a profound change in consciousness. Another individual awakens each time you say what they have been trying to repress. Another breach appears in their illusion each time you put your confidence in your own voice above their programming. The fact that you don't need their approval is what frightens them the most. You are not attempting to blend in. You're too preoccupied with outgrowing their creation. They didn't anticipate transcendence, but they did expect opposition. They are capable of managing discussions, demonstrations, and insurrection. However, they are unable to cope with someone who sees right through the illusion and continues to move. You are that. You're not opposing the system in the manner that they anticipated. You're subtly making it unimportant. They are also understanding for the first time that a revolution is not their greatest danger. It comes directly from your soul and is a revelation. You are the wild variable in their regulated equation, number 9. Their reality has been constructed like an equation. Every individual is required to adhere to a pattern, every consequence is planned, and every component is controlled. Everything in their universe has to make reason, follow a formula, and advance their goal. They have been in power for so long because of this. They are obsessed with accuracy. Their weapon is prediction. Their god is control. However, nothing about you fit when you arrived. You didn't just skew the computation. The whole board was broken by you. The wild variable they are unable to identify is you. You don't follow logic, thus they didn't account for the one outlier. You have a heavenly fluidity to your movements. They didn't anticipate presence, but they expected pushback. They didn't anticipate change, but they did expect opposition. And each time they believe they have you figured out, you transform into a new level of power, awareness, and clarity that they were not prepared for. The glitch they are unable to debug is you. Simulations have been conducted by them. Your tendencies have been profiled by them. Even luring you into predictable behavior has been attempted, but it never lasts. You change too fast. You go from being quiet and still to moving like a prophetic stream that upends everything in an instant. Because of such, you are dangerous. To attract attention, you don't move. From alignment, you move. As a result, your presence causes changes that are impossible for a computer to quantify. They see you as a malfunctioning gear in the wheel. However, you are the holy key that will allow them to uncover what they attempted to conceal. Their mechanisms are thus powerless over you. Because of this, their forecasts about you turn out to be incorrect. Equation fitting is not your purpose. Your purpose is to alter reality. Playing the game was not intended for you. You were destined to completely change the situation. They detest not being able to foresee you. The fact that you no longer want to be understood, however, is what really frightens them. You've given up attempting to express yourself in words that weren't designed for your understanding. They now realize that nothing they make can hold a soul that moves in accordance with divine guidance, because you've come to terms with your job as the untraceable interruption. 10. Their currency of deceit is exposed by the truth you bring. The foundation of their whole system is deceit. Not simply falsehoods, but delusions masquerading as reality. They maintain power by division, live on fear, and feed off scarcity. They deal in that currency. People are kept in a state of bewilderment by psychological traps, emotional manipulation, and half-truths. However, you possess something that others are unable to duplicate or taint. The truth. Not only facts, but the type of profound, heartbreaking truth that destroys illusions and authority. Their plan is upset just by your presence as you don't react as they anticipate. Their terror techniques don't make you panic. You don't pursue their fictitious incentives. Additionally, you avoid falling for the glitzy diversion they provide the general public. They have an issue with it because you're not just woken. You are anchored. Your wisdom is solid and grounded in reality. And that's what makes it risky. Because something clicks when people hear you talk. They recall something. That memory, which was suppressed by falsehoods and indoctrination, begins to resurface. Their whole delusion begins to crumble at that point. Billions are spent to keep people sleeping. However, one phrase from you is more powerful than 1,000 headlines from the media. Make a lasting impression on someone. You shatter bonds, not just open eyes. This is the component that poses the greatest danger to them. They become unforgivable if the deception is exposed. That is their system's fatal blow. Because control is only effective when individuals can be paid off with comfort, approval, or terror. But the connection is severed by your honesty. You have no intention of converting anybody. You're not screaming for attention out here. You're only being honest. And since your reality isn't theatrical, that's what makes you unstoppable. It has a transformative effect. And systems are not the only things that transformation challenges. They are terminated. They observe you for that reason. They imitate you because of this. They strive to silence you for that reason. Because their kingdom cannot live without the one item you hold. Unadulterated, unquestioning heavenly truth. 11. They're not interested in your demise. They want you to keep quiet. To destroy your power, they don't have to kill you. That is out of date. Martyrs are created via assassination. It attracts notice. They also don't want other people to start wondering why you were singled out. Therefore, they target your quiet, which is significantly more effective. Because you are your truth, your voice, and your presence. It's annoying. It does more than only tremble the space. The enchantment has broken, and there's no turning back once the enchantment is shattered. You have been discredited because of this. Why you've been labeled insane, crazy, challenging, and rebellious. It's all intentional. They attempt to damage your reputation if they are unable to block your insight. They attempt to isolate the messenger if they are unable to delete your communication. The issue is that you're too correct, not whether you're right. Your vision is too clear. You make connections too fast. Additionally, you talk too authoritatively for someone who lacks their endorsement. They are frightened by it. Your words stimulate rather than just inform. Telling folks what's wrong isn't enough. You reveal what has always been concealed inside them. That's the danger. Because when you speak to someone, they experience the truth rather than simply hearing it. And they transform when they sense it. Additionally, they become uncontrollable once they alter. Centuries of dominance and delusion are based on it, keeping people reliant, skeptical, and numb. All of it is destroyed in a matter of seconds by your voice. They gaslight you, then. They provide diversions. They are all around you, making noise and confusing you. Anything that make you stop talking, slow down, or question your knowledge. Here's the problem, however. It's too late now. Too much has been seen by you. You've experienced too much. In the midst of turmoil, you've learned to hear God. How to maintain alignment while everything is changing around you. You are thus unstoppable. Your death was never necessary for them. All they wanted was your voice. They're also at a loss for movements now that they know you won't give it up. Because the system begins to fall apart from the inside out as soon as a selected individual refuses to be silenced. You are the mirror, number 12. They won't face. It's not curiosity that makes them observe you. They're unraveling, which is why they watch you. Everything they are not is shown each time you stand, speak, shine, or just be in your truth. You remind them of the one thing that they have avoided all their lives. Genuineness, not the well-chosen variety. The unadulterated, uncorruptible sort that cannot be purchased, shattered, or twisted, not the lucrative kind. What they didn't become is you. The kind of power that didn't need to be dominated is you. The knowledge that didn't need to be kept secret. The impact that didn't need having a platform. Being who you are didn't require you to exchange your soul. And their whole foundation is at risk just because of that reality. As their identities were based on domination, affiliations, and masks. It wasn't yours. Suffering, survival, and divine alignment brought you yours. It is thus impossible to duplicate. It makes them crazy because of this. They study you to determine how you're even real, not to learn from you. How someone may survive hell and emerge unharmed. How a person may choose truth even when surrounded by deception. How a person may endure all forms of treachery without being resentful. Despite your imperfections, you are pure. Furthermore, purity is frightening in a society that is dependent on manufactured power. Their systems are not where you came from. You did not become one of them. They sent you, and they are unable to touch that area. They are able to duplicate your energy, your words, and even your style. However, they will never be you since man never gave you what you have. Additionally, imitation cannot replicate it. They are reminded of what their power cannot purchase each time they glance in your direction. Because of this, the fixation is deeply ingrained. The fact that God still rules over everything they believe they understood is shown by you. They don't consider you an adversary. You are a reflection of them. And when they look at you, they see something that they can't stand. They will never know freedom. They will never be at peace. With a spirit that is unbending. 13. Source, not systems, is where you were born. It was not you who rose through their ranks. You didn't climb their meticulously constructed ladders, play their game, or take their vows. You weren't raised under their covert directives or inducted into their lineages. Unaffected by their plan, you emerged from the crucible of divine will. And that's precisely why they find your presence so irritating. You are resistant to their control since you do not owe your identity to their systems. Centuries of snobbery, manipulation, and hierarchy molded them. Structure is the foundation of their whole identity. What they control, who they know, and how they exert dominance. They plan every action to keep their position. However, you act based on alignment, intuition, and unadulterated divine guidance. You don't move in an attempt to control, intimidate, or impress. You follow instructions. Furthermore, it is impossible to halt such sort of movement since it is unpredictable. You're more than just unique. You're disturbing people. Like a divine paradox, your existence slams into their construction. Although you are not descended from them, you possess an authority that they are unable to create. And each time you appear, genuine, grounded, and unbought, you shatter a little of the facade they have so diligently cultivated. They are obsessed with you because of this. Your mere existence demonstrates that something was never genuine in the first place, not because you're attempting to destroy it. Their platform is not necessary for the light you carry. Their rituals did not give you the power you possess. They've tried to mimic your lucidity for their whole lives. You are a direct threat as a result. You're honest, not because you're noisy. Systems were used to forge them. The source gave birth to you. Furthermore, nothing they can control can overrule a soul that was allocated by God, regardless of how much power they assert. They don't have you in their plan. They are aware that you are the heavenly error code that was given to cause the whole software to crash. 14. You don't have paranoia. You're accurate. They attempted to categorize you as too deep, too sensitive, or paranoid. Let's face it, however, they never thought that. Not at all. It was never about the truth when I called you paranoid. Damage control was the goal. They were trying to dismiss what you were seeing since your awareness wasn't based on conjecture, hence it was a cover-up. Alignment was the source. You didn't respond. You were getting. Additionally, what you got was too near to the agendas. They put a lot of effort into staying buried. Normal reasoning doesn't apply to your understanding. It isn't predicated on what is seen. It is based on feelings. Even before the talk starts, you can feel the change. Behind the grin, you sense the deception. Even before the knife is pulled, you can sense treachery. It isn't paranoid. That's accuracy. It's spiritual radar. Your whole life has been sharpened by it. You weren't thinking too much. By detecting active movement that hadn't yet reached the surface, you were pre-sensing. It was more than simply intuition in your gut. Advanced warnings were sent by divine intelligence. You don't miss it as other people do. You listen to the pauses in between sentences. Even when it's inconvenient or separates you, you believe it because of the tone of the words and the change in someone's eyes. You can't even begin to count how many times that faith has saved your life. They couldn't keep you under control, so they made fun of you. They couldn't keep you blind, so they labeled you dramatic. Behind closed doors, however, they were concerned since you already knew more than they attempted to hide. Their trickery was continually outpaced by your intelligence. They now understand what you always understood. It wasn't your imagination. You anticipated it. You don't have paranoia. You're in the lead. Additionally, your precision is revealing flaws in their plans before they have a chance to be carried out. They detest it the most. You do more than just survive. You anticipate. Darkness isn't causing you to respond. Before it comes, you're witnessing it. Every crazy suspicion turned out to be a heavenly prophecy, which is why they have stopped laughing. They are now the ones observing you. They made an effort to minimize you to a conspiracy, an outcast, or a bug. But now they see that you were the blueprint they never had access to, the prophecy they failed to foresee, and the warning they disregarded. You weren't born into luxury. You were born with a purpose. And no system, hidden group, or fabricated objective can ever replicate it. You never came here to blend in. You were put here to expose, to disturb, to arouse. Through supernatural insight that speaks louder than any institution ever could, not through noise, but through presence. You move with clarity and accuracy, whereas others move with fear and control. They can't purchase the truth you carry. They cannot feign alignment or steal awareness. The rebel they warn people about is not you. The holy reality they thought would never manifest is you. They have planned, researched, and stalked you. You were devastatingly correct, not because you were incorrect. They are now compelled to acknowledge what they have always avoided. Not only are you ahead of the curve, the shift is you. Darkness is not only inconvenienced by the existence of a chosen one. There is a countdown. Thus, continue to talk, to be perceptive, to disturb. Because every statement you make, every truth you uphold, and every timeline you dismantle is evidence that divine light may shine through without authorization. You're positioned in addition to being protected. And because you're lost, they're not keeping an eye on you. You're leading the way out, so they're watching. Don't stop here if this message sparked an inner spark. Become a part of a tribe of spirits who see beyond appearances by clicking the subscribe button. This goes beyond content. There is a movement. Every share, remark, and like is more than simply interaction. It's a battle of the spirit. It's the process by which we feed the algorithm real data rather than noise. Tell the world that you're not sleeping and that you're in alignment by leaving a remark below. Like this video if you thought each phrase had a unique impact. Give it to someone who needs a reminder of who they were before society forced them to disappear. Our purpose is not to amuse you. Our purpose is to awaken. And that awakening includes you. Let's overhaul this system from the ground up by subscribing today. Your voice counts. Energy is changed by your presence. Let them continue to observe. We will continue to rise. May you be blessed.